Hello everyone, in my previous long video, we have discussed some typical structures that come in the transformation of sentences. Now again we are beginning from a point you can see on the screen as soon as can be asked to be begun with no sooner type of sentence, where you will take care that if the sentence given is in present tense then you continue in the present tense in no sooner also, and no sooner once it comes the beginning then it is followed by than, 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 because er is comparative, er plus than is comparative structure, that you remember in mind. And when you are told to begin with hardly, barely, or scarcely, then it is followed by hardly is followed by when, barely is followed by when, scarcely is also followed by when. What is common in these three? You learn these three structures together. Why? Because they are used in past tense mostly. Okay, and in the no sooner structure, remember, because it is a negative sentence, you will find inversion also. Had you will use only when it is given in as soon as sentence. If it is not given, you please avoid and ignore it. And you will find online had is given and did is also given, and interchangeably they are avoiding marks, but try to avoid it because had is used in no sooner type of sentences when it is already provided in as soon as type of sentence to you. We'll make it clear in the subsequent videos with more elaborate examples. Now either you will get in question paper the sentence containing not only but also type of elements, and they may ask you to begin with besides. So remember that the meaning of the word besides already includes the word also. So along with besides, you do not use also. Okay, so you just say the entire sentence but don't use also in that, and that will be the most common error. So here in this video basically I am discussing most common errors so that quickly at a glance you can revise for your exams better. More examples will be coming in the subsequent videos. Now they may provide you to in the sentence, and they may want you to use so that in the other sentence. You may change it this way. Or in transformation, they may provide you a sentence including so that elements, and you may use to. So remember that that person is so old that he cannot run. So that person is too old to run. So basically in so that type of sentence, you either use can when the sentence given in to type of sentence is in present tense, or you use could when the sentence given in to type of sentence is in past tense basically. But if in rare cases some will is used, then you will not use can, because can shows ability and will shows the intention and certainty. We have already revised active and passive voice in the class, direct and indirect speech in the class, and this is quite easy for you. So I know you will be able to do, but in case you want to refer, then in future I will upload some more videos on these two topics, D and E. Comparison of adjectives also we have done in the class, and one separate video I will upload on this. Right now, just focus on G. All conditional words must have a comma following it. Although, unless, if, in spite of, despite, notwithstanding, or lest. Remember this. In previous days, in old grammar, although and though would be followed by yet. Now only a comma means yet. So you don't have to do anything, just put a comma, otherwise you lose 1 mark. There's no minus half deduction in this, only 0 you get in case you forget that comma. And whenever you begin with unless, you are asked to begin with unless because it contains one prefix which is a negative one. Un means something negative, so it is making antonym. So in order to balance the meaning in the other clause, we use something negative like no, not, never, or any antonym which means negative, so that the given meaning, if it was an affirmative sentence, that means it was a positive sentence given, then the second sentence which we are making using unless will balance it out in meaning, because the same formula for maths, minus into minus is equal to plus, will be applicable in the case of unless type of sentences where we are using unless for conditional sentence. So if you keep these formulae in mind, it becomes quite easy for you to do. Then if is followed by when, in spite of has of in the phrase, but common mistake which children do is that they use of along with despite, and examiners know it. They are waiting for you to commit this error. So kindly don't commit, write despite of and put a crossover of, so that you remember that we cannot write of after despite. So despite is equal to in spite of. If you repeat, if you are writing despite of, which means you substitute the value, and what is the meaning coming then? The sense will be changed. It will be in spite of. So that is an error. Repetition is an error in English, so we can do that. So please don't use of after despite. I hope that is clear. Now, when you are trying to understand notwithstanding, try to focus on these three elements together: in spite of, despite, and notwithstanding. Meaning is same, usage is same. One that is used after this structure, and wherever it is used, it means that you just don't give value to that portion of the sentence where notwithstanding is written. Notwithstanding that he was lame, he won the race. So despite he was lame, he won the race. Okay. So now, and when you write in spite of, obviously you have to make it a noun. In spite of his disability, he won the race. That kind of sentence can be valid. Earlier in old school grammar books, it was written that lest is followed by should. Now, no need, you just put a comma and you get marks. So, comma will separate the next clause. Okay, that will replace the subordinating conjunction. Now, we move on to I, because H we have done in class and we'll do in further videos. I ought. Ought does not come alone. After ought to is written, and ought to is equal to should. So whatever we can say in Hindi as chahiye is said using should, which is the way we give suggestion, like teacher gives you suggestion, or doctor gives you suggestion, or lawyer gives you suggestion. But when we use ought to, it means moral duty, moral obligation. For example, you need to give a glass of water to your granny, which is a moral obligation. I can say you should give a glass of water to your granny. That is also correct, because should is a bigger umbrella and ought to is just one spoke under it. So you cannot say you ought to brush your teeth, you ought to take bath. You can always say should for all those types of sentences where you are meaning you want to intend to give some suggestion. Chahiye kind of sentences. So there in every sentence you use should, but ought to you can use only where there is some moral obligation or duty. You ought to bring medicines for your ailing mother. So that way you should use to. Next one is little did we know. Little did we know is an idiomatic expression used to indicate that the subjects were unaware of important information or upcoming or often unexpected events in the past. It functions as a dramatic, often regretful narrative device for dramatic irony. For example, we took a trip to the seashore. Little did we know that the beach was closed due to a recent storm. Another example, little did we know that when we met him, we would become business partners. Another example, let us take, the house looked perfect, but little did we know about the broken plumbing. One more example, little did they know their plane would crash in the Andes. What is the rule? Now make the rule. Little, after little did will come, then subject will come, then know will come. Now, sometimes in some sentences, you will find think or imagine also in place of know. And that will always be followed by that. Main word is that, which children may forget. That you remember. So the phrase uses inversion for emphasis, where the auxiliary verb did comes before the subject. It is commonly used at the start of a sentence or clause. Okay. Little did we know. So we is subject now. It is coming after did, and it is unusual, so we call it inversion of the structure. It often precedes a that clause, which is sometimes omitted. It can be used with any subject, such as little did I know, little did he know, little did they know. So I hope it is clear now. Now we move on to number K, which is beginning with none but. None but is an English idiom that means only or no one except or nothing except. It often is used to add emphasis or for a more literary or formal tone. So, what is the rule? You use only, then no one except, or nothing but. It acts as a negative emphatic way to say only. So the meaning of this none but is only. When none but is the subject, the verb that follows usually agrees with the noun phrase that comes after but. In grammatical transformation, none but is used to change affirmative sentences starting with only or all into negative sentences. Meaning no one except. So none but the brave deserve the fair. This is the way they give you sentences. None but his collaborators confirmed his claims. So in the first one, you write only the brave deserve the fair. Then third example is none but the most bigoted anti-Foki could fail to be interested. None but Julie heard him whisper. None but a fool would believe that story. None but the best will do for this project. Transformation is from only to none but. Only God can help us. So, what is the transformation? None but God can help us now. Only God can help us now will change to none but God can help us now. Only trained professionals can handle this can change to none but trained professionals can handle this. So, none but can be followed by him or none but can be followed by he. Both are correct. One is old grammar and one is new. Both are acceptable. A main thing is that the verb following none but can be singular or plural depending on whether the following noun is singular or plural. For example, none but the girl was allowed in. So none but the girls were allowed in is also correct. Do not use none but with another negative in the same clause. None but no one knows. So that is incorrect. What is correct? None but he knows. Let us make despite and in spite of easy. First of all, we don't use of after despite, which I've already told you, because you may understand this way that despite is equal to in spite of, which means of is already hidden inside the meaning of despite. So if in case you write of after despite, the meaning will be in spite of. If you substitute the meaning the way you substitute in maths formulae, you will get clarity in your mind. Now let us see some examples. Then we'll understand better. Despite the heavy traffic, we arrived on time. This may be converted to in spite of the heavy traffic, we arrived on time. One more sentence they may give you this way. In spite of the rain, they played soccer. Meaning despite the rain, they played soccer. So one more example. Let us take he passed the test in spite of not studying. More examples. Despite having a cold, she finished the project. It can also be followed by a pronoun. She went to the party in spite of that. In spite of the fact that she was tired, she kept working. So, the fact that is also one phrase which can come there. For example, despite the fact that it was expensive, he bought the car. Now, one thing is there, despite is more formal and in spite of is less formal. Try to understand this way also. Now, both prefer to and rather than are used to express choices, but they follow different grammatical structures and emphasize different types of preferences. So, general versus specific or contrasting. So, number one, we take prefer to, which means general preference, used to state a general preference for an action or thing, often comparing it to another. What is the structure? Prefer something to something else. Prefer to, then a verb will come, then rather than will come. Then I prefer coffee to tea. She prefers reading to watching TV. So watching is a gerund, right? She prefers to walk rather than drive. So these are correct. I prefer to eat at home rather than go out. What is the rule? Use to when comparing nouns or ing verbs. I prefer X to Y. That is the main rule. Do not use than along with prefer. This is the main error which children do. Rather ke saath than. You should use than with rather, and you should not use than with prefer. So use rather than when comparing infinitive verbs. Prefer to do X rather than do Y. Rather than is used for contrasting preferences, used to indicate a choice or preference for one thing over another, often to show a direct contrast or to negate the second option. What is the structure? The structure is rather than plus action. So rather than plus ing verb or a noun and then main clause comes. For example, now examples will make it more clear. I would rather walk than take the bus. She decided to run than rather than walk. I'm repeating, she decided to run rather than walk. Rather than driving, he rode his bike. I will have water rather than soda. Often used with would rather. I would rather do A than B. That is the structure, and this is the most important thing you have to remember. When rather than introduces a clause, the verb often matches the form of the main clause or uses the ing form, that is a gerund. It functions similarly to instead of, but is more often used for contrasting choices. See point number 4. If the question has the word probable and the answer begins with in, then the answer will be in all probability. Now, what are they actually asking you to do? This is the chapter on nominalization which you have done before class 8th. So, you are simply making noun by adding ity at the end of the base form of the word. Okay, many other ways are there of making noun. For example, attend plus ance, attendance, or attend plus tion, attention. So similarly, you make noun in many ways, and yes, they may obviously give you vice versa also. They may give you other form and they may ask you to change to another. Now please take a note of all these points which are mentioned on the screen, which I've already explained to you, and just see that these can also be asked in exam. Use either or, neither nor. That can also be asked in exam. Point number 11, none but means only. Examples are none but the brave deserves the fair, which means only the brave deserve it. None but Julie heard him, which means only Julie heard him. None but the most bigoted could fail to be interested. More examples, none but he was allowed in. Formal usage where he is followed by but, which means only. All but means almost or except. All but John knew. If I say John knows. None but is a formal idiom meaning only or no one except. It is used to emphasize that a particular person or a thing is the exclusive recipient of an action or state, meaning only or nobody except or nothing except. Usage is it acts as a subject or object to restrict an action to a single, often special person or group. None but is used as the subject. The verb should agree with the noun or pronoun that follows but. So none but plus plural noun plus plural verb, or in singular case you write none but plus singular noun plus singular verb. None but the brave deserves the fair, only the brave deserve the fair. Some more structures are asked. If the question begins on a negative note and ends on a positive note, the answer should start on a positive note and end on a negative note. For example, it hasn't rained here for a week, has it? So it will change to it has rained here for a week, hasn't it? Notice it was minus plus structure given and we made it plus minus. Tag questions, which we have already done, happen in this way only. Beginning with affirmative will end with negative tag question, and beginning with a negative sentence will end in a positive question tag. Point 14, never use of with comprise, which I already told you. Example is the team comprises 11 players. Remember this in your mind. Then remember the rule that of is not written after comprise. Number 15, whenever a sentence begins with no other, the sentence should be in the positive degree. No other boy is as good as Rohan. So this example you remember. And in the best manner, if you want to write the sentence, then you say it this way: no other boy in the class is so good as Rohan. because although it is positive degree of comparison, but we are comparing, and so see the sense that we are not appreciating other people indirectly. So in this case, in such examples, Rita is not so good as Sita. So if you do this way, then the beginning as will be changed to so. So Rita is not so good as Sita. That will become the example. Second exercise will be giving you 10 sentences wherein some prepositions will be wrongly written. You will have to make corrections because you will have to read phrasal verbs together and then you will be able to supply the correct phrasal verb over there, and you have to provide the correct preposition for which you get half mark each. So total you get 5 marks for this answer. Then you have part 3 in which they are asking you the verb tenses. In the verb tenses questions, it will be a passage given where you will get 10 blanks, half marks per blank you get. So in total you get 5 marks for the verb forms, in which mostly if it is beginning with past tense, it should continue with past tense. That is the second rule for the sequence of tenses which you have to remember. Sometimes you change depending on the sense of the sentence. The word can be in present tense or ing form. Continuous form can also be there. So very rarely one word will be given which becomes a noun. So just read carefully, have confidence in yourself, keep faith in God. All the best for your examinations. Do very well and come out with flying colors. I'm waiting to see you on the stage with garlands and laddus and your parents honored. All the very best. Thank you, my dear children.